Welcome to my podcast. And today I am thrilled to welcome Liz Earle. I have been a huge aficionado of all her beauty products, but today we thought we'd chat all about how to live longer, better. Liz, thank you so much for battling your way out of London to come and meet me today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
I know you left the Liz Earle products behind, which I still find in John Lewis.
Yes.
And I think your cleanser must have been one of the most famous cleansers in the entire world, with the cloth that came with it.
A cloth, cleanse and polish. I think, when I have my gravestone, it'll probably be in the shape of a cleanse and polish container. Hugely proud of it, actually. My partners and I, we sold the beauty brand back in 2010, and I don't have any connection with it any longer. That was a move that enabled me to go back to my original passion, which was writing about beauty and health and well-being, which is really where I started, although not many people know that because I got overtaken by face cream.
So now I've thoroughly enjoyed your book about living well longer. It's a very pretty green and white cover. I'm always interested in the cover colours of what you put on them so that everybody must go out and buy it. Perfect Christmas present. But actually, joking apart, it is a really interesting book because it's both a personal and a very informative view of how we can help ourselves live much better longer. And particularly as women, I think some of the challenges we face get brushed under. We're just told to get on with it rather than looking at what will make us better and what steps we can take to make us better. So have you always wanted to write a book?
It's probably taken about 35 years because it is the sum of pretty much all I've learned so far on this journey for wellness. I started off as a journalist writing about health and well-being in my early 20s. I'm 61 now, so I've seen a lot of change over 40 years. My first few books were about nutrition. They were about the importance of healthy fat at a time when everything going back that far was low fat. We were encouraged to eat low-fat yogurt and cottage cheese and that was the bad guy. We now know that actually healthy fats are really good for us and that it's the sugars that are the really destructive demons here. So over the years, I have written about lots of different things that mirror my own stage of life. So when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was writing about healthy baby foods and postnatal health. And then I moved on to writing about gut health and stress in my 40s. And then I wrote the first sort of big consumer guide to the menopause when I hit my 50s. And then it was sort of, well, what's the next step really? And I think that as midlife women, we are often overlooked in society. And I think there is a real gender disparity in terms of healthcare. To your point, we're very often just told to sort of get on with it. And at 61, I feel fitter, healthier, stronger, happier than I have ever felt in my life. Certainly in my 40s and my 50s, when I kind of lost myself, really. And I want that for everybody. And I know that there are simple, easy, effective, safe, cheap hacks that we can all hack into, like the sisterhood, to feel better than ever. And we are living longer. We know that statistically. But we need to live well, don't we? There's not much point in having more years on our life if we don't have the life in our years to enjoy them.
You're completely and utterly right. You may not know, but I'm one of 6 sisters. So we are all quite interested in each other's health as well. And our parents both died far too young. So I'm now older than my father and I'll soon be older than my mother. So in a sense, every so often that kind of hits you in the face as you try to look forward to and hope you're going to face the next 20 years in good health. And my number 4 sister trains in nutrition and acupuncture and things like that. If anybody buys a yogurt with sugar in it or fruit in it, I actually feel very, very guilty. Yeah. So it's natural kefir and we're using kimchi and goodness knows what.
Yeah.
It is. I think, I think Napoleon said how important the tummy was for his army to march on. And that is the truth, isn't it? The book is divided up into very straightforward chapter headings, which I also always like.
It sort of starts with getting yourself in the right frame of mind because you've got to actually commit to considering that you are worth investing a bit of time. And I think so many midlife women, we've spent so long giving our time to others. We tended to be the caregivers in the family. Chances are we may have had children and brought them up. We may have other halves that we look after, older parents that we support. We may be involved in our local community, our work. And I think particularly in the UK, we've become rather bad at prioritizing ourselves because self-care has been seen as a little bit self-indulgent. And certainly with my generation, and we need to say that self-care is not selfish. It's really important that we look after ourselves because it's like they say when you put your mask on the plane before helping others, you really do need to do that. And I asked a pilot friend actually not that long ago, how long do we have if we hear that? And he said, well, you've got about maybe 1.5, 2 seconds before you lose consciousness. So it's really important that you grab that mask and you put it on so that you can then help others around you. And I think that's actually a very useful analogy that we need to grab the time that we have to look at how we can better be mentally, physically, spiritually, so that we are better able to help others. And actually, it's also our time. I think so many midlife women, we think, do you know, I've earned this. I've got this far and I'm full of wisdom and knowledge and experience. And unfortunately, it's a time when our body too often conspires against us, whether it's hormonal changes or physical things, degenerative illness that creeps up on us. And we don't have that opportunity to be our best and to live our best lives. And I just think that we need to put a little bit of time back in to make the most of the second half of our life. It's called a better second half because I think everybody should hopefully be aspiring for a better half and not just saying it's going to be downhill all the way, because I don't think that's true.
Oh, I don't think it's true as well, given I'm in the same position as you. There's so much experience behind me that it's actually what you can do and how you can go forwards. And I'm sure you have such a wealth of experience and knowledge of how to connect with people that there's an awful lot to give. And I think is one of your chapters about connections.
It is, very much so. So it starts off, you make that commitment and then you have to be consistent. You don't have to be 100% brilliant all of the time. I live by the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, I'm pretty careful what's on the end of my fork, prioritizing my sleep, that kind of thing. 20% of the time, I'm eating a load of cake and drinking too much tequila. That balance, as long as it's that way around and not the other way around, then I think you're doing okay. But then we move through practical chapters, things like gut health, hormone health, what to eat, focusing on protein, for example, how to move, lifting weights, the importance of that. Towards the end of the book, I do talk about your passion, finding your passion and your purpose. Because at the end of the day, I don't think any of us want to get to the end of our lives and look back and think, well, what was all that about? Was that it? Did I make the world a better place for having been here? And I think a lot of that comes from connecting with those around us. And we've seen that loneliness is quite literally a killer. We are social beings and we need the connectivity with others, whether it's we're fortunate enough to have family, close friends, loving relationships, romantic relationships. But if not, we can connect through our local community, through volunteering, faith group connections, whatever it is. Having that social connection is so important on a literally physical level. We're producing happy chemicals in the brain, endorphins, oxytocin. You need to hug. You need to hug a lot. And it's the 6-second hug that's the important hug for producing oxytocin. So you hug somebody for probably slightly longer than might feel comfortable if it's a 6-second one. So that might be your other half, or it might be a child or a good friend, or even a dog, a pet. Just that physical connection. And if there is literally no other being around you, you can actually hug yourself. You can try it now. You can just take your arms, cross them over, and just give yourself a big hug. And what that's doing is it's connecting with the vagus nerve and your skin contact here, your contact receptors that just immediately help give you that little surge of happy hormone in the brain and makes you feel better. So yes, absolutely, connectivity is really important.
I think that came very clearly out of COVID.
Completely.
And funnily enough, I set up Friends of Highclere partly as a reaction to that, because I think there's nothing more important than friendship. And I keep exploring the different ways of experiencing and connecting with people, both in reality and across an ocean, of reaching out through many different ways, because that word friends is more important than anything else in the world. And I always think it's amusing because one of the most successful sitcoms was called Friends. It's something that.
And we all got drawn into it, didn't we?
We did.
Enjoyed that. You're absolutely right to have done that. And I also started my Instagram lives during lockdown because although maybe my name is quite well known, personally, I've always been very private. Never really let anybody into my home or with my family life. And then I remember the beginning of lockdown, it was such an appalling and strange time. I just flicked on my Instagram live one lunchtime in the kitchen just to kind of check in with everybody. Say, how are we all doing and how's everyone feeling? And these are a few simple things that you might like to do that could be helpful. And then the next day I thought, oh, let's just have another little check and see how everyone's doing. And everybody kind of jumped back in and then said, well, you will be back tomorrow, won't you? And I ended up doing every day at lunchtime for 17 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
Which was a lot, but it built this amazingly strong community, which is still going. I don't do every day now. I only do 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. But there is this lovely community. And I think of all the social media platforms, perhaps Instagram feels maybe one of the safer spaces to be. And we share good news and inspiration and encouragement. And I think we do need that, hopefully more in real life. But if you can't have that, then I think virtual also does have a good benefit.
I think it does have a really good benefit. It's really interesting. And I think many of us have stepped well outside our comfort zones in order to figure out what's the essence of being human as well. I think connections, we are social animals. And there's been a home here, Liz, at Highclere. My earliest written records are 749 AD, because Iron Age fort and Bronze Age tumuli. So in a sense, there's a connection through time and place, which I love. I like taking off my shoes and walking across the lawn.
You're grounding, man. And
my
work. Everybody needs to do that. And I know it gets harder at this time of year. If you're listening in the UK or the Northern Hemisphere, then definitely the idea of stepping out of your shoes and socks first thing in the morning, or frankly, any time of the day, but connecting with the earth. And that could be grass or stone or rock or even beach, sand, if you live by the sea. It's really important to get that connection with the earth. And we know physically that the earth is producing this magnetic charge. We've got negative ions that the body absorbs. And you may think that's all a bit woo-woo, but if you look at the scientific data, studies show that it can improve wound healing, speed wound healing, and reduce inflammation in the body simply by doing something as simple as taking your shoes and socks off and standing on the grass. So like you, I do that first thing every morning.
Well, I'm always padding around barefoot, and quite a lot of the floors are wood, and I like the feel of wood underneath. So it's that and the trees and nurture and nature, which is part of my next book,
Great.
which I really, really enjoy. So there's all of that. And when I go down to Cornwall, the first thing I do is go down to the sea and hit my shoes and socks off and go and paddle. It's just the best thing since sliced bread. My husband always thinks I'm slightly potty, but I wish he would do it as well. But I don't think he's going to. But never mind. I'm happy doing it.
It's really powerful. And actually, when things are slightly damp, as they are certainly here in the UK at the moment, even things like putting your hands on a damp tree can really give you the same connection, because the trees are obviously hugely grounded and rooted in the earth. And that energy comes up from them, and they are living life forces. And I was watching this very interesting documentary recently about how you can even talk to the tree. You can put your left hand on a tree, especially when it's damp, the conductivity is there. You tune into it. And first of all, you ask the tree a question, is it male or female? And very often you get the reply come back quite strongly. And then you can ask it other things, and it sees so much of history. And it's just a fascinating concept. I think scientifically that's hard to prove. And I always try and be evidence-based. So I haven't actually put that in my book. But the grounding bit is definitely in there.
No, definitely. So when you're not writing or journalism, do you have a passion outside that world which you are always supporting or looking after, or where do you go?
Well, I love what I do. It's been said that if you love your job, you never actually do a day's work in your life because you're doing what you love. I mean, that's not strictly true, obviously, as we know, but there are always challenges and pressures. But I do feel very fortunate that every day is a school day for me. I learn, and I love meeting academics and raising the voices of people who perhaps otherwise aren't being heard, particularly in the whole wellness space. I started a humanitarian charity a few years ago, so I'm very involved with projects in East Africa. My son lives in Nairobi, and we have the family home over in Kenya, so I spend a reasonable bit of time there and just connecting with people. I'm a real people person. I love to cook. Cooking is my big hobby. And I'm never happier than if I'm in the kitchen, surrounded by people, a noisy, bustly kitchen, making something like pasta, spaghetti bolognese, or pizzas, or just something really simple. And nourishing people, I think, is such a gift, isn't it, to be able to create sustaining food that then people will sit and enjoy and communicate with. We were talking the other day on my podcast about these fat loss jabs, weight loss jabs, and it takes away your appetite completely. And actually, you're taking away the joy of social connection, because so much of our society
around
is
food.
based around, let's sit around the table and enjoy something together. And if you have literally no appetite, then do you then have not any appetite for social connection? And I think that could be a very dangerous slope to go down.
You very kindly mentioned one of the lost books, which is nursing. And it hadn't occurred to me until I was writing about it, which was really about Almina, my predecessor, who did make a difference to people's lives. That the word nurse comes from nourishing the soul and the body. And I just thought that was such an amazing connection. We've sort of forgotten about it in today's world. It is important. Everything here revolves around food for our visitors, for our guests, for family and friends. And I think it would be miserable, actually. Heck, oh, that's away.
Take it away. I agree. I write a lot about nutrition. And in the book, I talk a lot about different supplements, for example. I used to take a lot of supplements and think that you could get away with not eating very well and just having supplements. And I don't believe that any longer. I think it has to be food first. And I heard something just the other day that said, basically, don't eat anything that has a label on it. Oh, gosh, that is really quite hardcore, isn't it? But it's true. If a food needs to have a descriptive label to tell us what it is, then frankly, it's kind of not really food, is it, potentially? So that means having more home cooking, simple things cooked from scratch, doesn't need to be expensive or complicated. I love an egg. If the government ever want an egg czar, then I am that person, because I could literally talk to you for days about the benefits of eggs. Very sustainable, nourishing, complete form of protein, very good for the brain, choline, healthy fats, all of that. So I think there is a balance that we need to eat well and put food first, and seasonal eating is also really important. And being local, being sustainable. I used to have a farm. I was a regenerative farmer, one of the founding farmers for Pasture for Life, which focuses on grass-fed produce. We were Hereford cattle farmers at the time. No longer, but I'm still very supportive of the farming community.
What we are. We've been a farm here for a long time. I wrote book Seasons at High Cliff about treading lightly on this earth and eating well. And it's completely and utterly key. And it's about farms and not factories.
Completely
That's the
right.
other byline, which is, I think, where I come from.
Yes.
I think we're very lucky in this country. We have so much choice and food available, actually. It's different, I suspect, to Africa, when you are much more on the front line.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And very controlled, unfortunately, by climate and drought and all of those things.
Funny enough, my little son, well, he's not little, my son rather, is having a fundraising art exhibition to raise money for Tusk, which is a charity.
Yeah.
Which actually, the hilarious thing is, I first went to support them with Geordie before we were married. And then, which is a long time ago now. And then he said to me, I'm having an art exhibition in London, Mummy, to raise money for it. And please, she was a friend. And then bizarrely, I saw Charlie Mayhew, who I'd completely forgotten 2 days ago. So I hope he's going to come too. But I like that charity because it's focused on mentoring, doing, helping, giving a way of life to the people in Africa.
Absolutely.
Rather than just giving handouts.
You have to have this sustainable approach. And as well as my own charity, I'm a patron of a charity called ACE Africa, which is very much about nutrition. So it's teaching people how to grow gardens of vegetables using a simple sack. So sack gardens where you can get lots and lots of plants of sustainable, nourishing cabbages and greens and all sorts of things from a simple packet of seeds in a sack. And it takes very little water, so the irrigation is obviously a big issue. So it's about going into local communities and rural areas and teaching these very simple skills that are life-sustaining.
Community sustaining, I thought.
Yeah.
So at this stage of your life, what's on the horizon? You've got another book in mind?
I do.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do, actually. So this one, it's been amazing. It's done really super well. And so my publishers are very pleased and they would like the follow-up. And actually there's so much to say about longevity and wellness. We're discovering new ways of looking after our mitochondrial cell health and helping to prevent neurodegeneration, to keep our brains intact and help to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia and all of those terrible things. So I wanted to take my readers on the next journey, really, and just further encourage. I've actually been quite bold and said that this is my better second half. And at 61, I would hope I'm halfway through. So I'm pitching for 120. And I really think that is highly achievable. In fact, I spoke at a Oxford Longevity Summit recently, and having heard what's going on in terms of stem cells and all peptide injections and all sorts of interesting things like that, I might actually push it up to 130.
So I'm sure my son will probably be fed up with me by then.
Well, but that's the key, isn't it? It's about actually having your purpose and having fulfillment and being a contributor rather than just a drain. Because I think none of us want that. But I think if we can continue to be part of the solution and help and encourage others with wisdom and knowledge and be on the right side of things, then that has to be a good goal to live for. But I think it's all about living well for longer with cognitive function, with mobility, with joy, with community, and being the best that we can be.
How have your family taken on board that you've shared more of your personal life with the wider world? How has that gone?
Yes, they are a little bit hesitant. So I don't gratuitously just put pictures of my kids up. And I think that's important. And in fact, my youngest son is 14, and he is really annoyed because he'd love to be on my Instagram. And I've said, listen, I'm not putting any pictures of you anywhere until you're 18. Because I just think you have to be an adult and you make that choice. And you may decide, actually, do you know what? I don't really want my image and name and likeness and whatever out there. So when you're 18, so the others do make appearances occasionally. And I think I've just had to get used to it in a way. So after I got divorced a few years ago, which was the second time, which is why I'm rather nervous in my book, because I do write about relationships. And I say, listen, I'm not the prime example, but I can tell you what not to do. I can tell you how things don't work. And there is a section on relationships and about sex in later life and all of that. And I had a period on my own for many years because I felt that actually it was really important to learn who I was on my own before jumping back into a relationship and finding that I didn't actually need someone to complete me. I was quite happy to be on my own. And I did get to that stage. And now I, as has been fairly widely publicised, with a much younger boyfriend who is also slightly rabbit in the headlights, does not want to be on social media at all, finds it all quite terrifying. And why are people so interested? And do I have to have my picture taken? And please cut me out of it. I respect that. And I think there are ways of doing it where you can have openness, but you don't need to overshare every detail. And I think it's potentially a mistake because once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in.
No, you can't. And I watch some of my girlfriends who do, I think, share rather a lot. And I don't know why they're sharing it. I don't think it's very attractive. And I don't think it's necessarily, looking backwards. It's always out there. My mother used to say, don't worry, darling, it's tomorrow's fish and chip paper. Well, it's not now.
Not now. And even my youngest, he's on that chat and all these things that I have to say I don't really understand. And he said, it's fine, Mummy, the pictures just disappeared. They just disappeared. I said, sweetheart, they are there somewhere. They are there and they can be recalled at any moment by whoever in the future. So please don't take any picture, even if it's a disappearing one, that you would not be happy seeing on the front page of a national newspaper.
That's very sensible. Did you take that on board?
I don't know. Does it go over their heads? Do they listen? I don't know.
There you go, the mother, so not really. No, I don't think so. So when is your next book out? Can I ask you that?
No, but I'm just starting it now, actually, so it'll be the spring of 26.
Right.
But I have got a revised edition of A Better Second Half, which will come out sort of early summer next year with some of the new data. But I think it's interesting that there's still so much that people, I think, haven't even got hold of and grasped. So I would love everybody to kind of get up to speed with the basics of what we need to be doing now. I mean, even things like some of the new vitamin supplements, taking things like quercetin, glutathione, resveratrol. These are all such interesting, useful things. Increasing the amount of protein that we put on our plates every day. Lifting a few weights. Do you do any weightlifting?
Erratically.
You see, for women particularly, I was brought up in an era where it was all sort of Jane Fonda step classes and leg warmers and jumping up and down, which is all very well. But actually, if we just do 10 minutes a day of lifting some really heavy weights, it's going to do much more for us.
Well, I do end up having to heave book boxes around, which are jolly heavy.
Well, that is
so we all do quite a big workout here. or sometimes gardening or mucking out a stable is sort of a bit of a workout, which is the upper body part, actually, which is quite interesting. It's quite an outdoor place here. We are all outside.
And I imagine
an
you do a
awful
fair
lot.
few steps.
Yes, the
You're
steps
walking a
will
lot, don't you?
Yes, and that's not it. But I completely appreciate what you're saying about weight, and it is important. So I do yoga from time to time, but more in the summer outside than the winter. And that is also using your body to create the weight. So I
Resistance
like
training.
that.
Yeah,
That's
push-ups.
fun.
You need to buy dumbbells or expensive equipment. Just doing squats, getting up and down from a chair repeatedly. I've got a friend who does them every time she goes to the loo. She does 100 squats, just up and down, because it's the way that she remembers. And actually, when you're looking at warding off dementia, the studies show that it's the up-down movement. It's doing something, whether it's to the cerebral fluid going into the brain or whatever, but it is that up-down movement that seems to protect and be involved somewhere with neuroplasticity. So whether you're doing squats or whether you're doing push-ups, the up and down action is actually doing good things for your brain as well as physically strengthening your muscles.
Well, I just think in Bronze Age lineage, we're obviously running around a lot more and not being inside as much. I think you can think what our ancestors did and copy them a little bit more than we're otherwise doing today. And computers and sitting at a computer all day is not so good.
No, and of course that blue light that comes from those little screens, really in the evening, if you can, put your phone onto night mode. I wear blue blocking glasses from about 6 in the evening now. So these orange lens glasses that take away the blue light. And I sent some to my son actually at uni because he's a night owl and he's a third year student. He's up all hours writing dissertations. And he was saying to me, Mum, I'm just having real trouble sleeping. I was saying, well, what time do you switch off your computer? And he said, well, I don't know, 2 in the morning or something. And I said, then you expect to be fast asleep. All that blue light from your screen is messing up your melatonin and you're disrupting your circadian rhythm, so you won't be able to go straight to sleep. So I sent him some really inexpensive orange lens glasses. He wears them now in the evenings. I cannot believe the difference. I can go straight to sleep after just switching off my laptop.
Oh, that's much better, isn't that? Reduced, is it? Well, I think we are the authors of our own disasters quite often, aren't we, as people?
Yes, that's a really good expression. And I think recognizing it and just finding little simple hacks. It's like you don't have to stop working. Ideally, you would in the evening, but let's just have a workaround that makes it possible.
Liz, thank you so much for coming today. I'm looking forward to your next book. I have much enjoyed your current book.
Thank you.
And I have much enjoyed your cleanser and your face cloth. Yes. So thank you so much for all that you've given all of us. Thank you very much for coming here today.
Thank you.